Hello, interwebs. My name is James Johns, and I am a scientist. Every day, I go to work at Northwestern University, and using some very specialized tools, I study the arrangements of atoms and molecules and materials in enough detail that I can see individual little atoms. To me, this is the coolest type of job I ever could have hoped for. But I wasn't always a scientist, and I didn't always know what a scientist did. Um, when I was a kid, uh, my idea of science and technology was my Nintendo system, right? So playing video games and using my computer, that's what I thought like being science and techie was all about. And that was really cool, and I liked video games then, and I still love video games now. But that's what I thought all of science was. So I tried some computer programming, but it wasn't really for me. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe I won't be a scientist, or honestly, I didn't think it was that exciting. And so I thought maybe, well, being a scientist is kind of boring. The only other exposure I had to science was sort of what you see in a science fair, where you have like a bunch of people that maybe, grow plants with different amounts of sugar or water or like funny chemicals and see, oh, does the plant grow or does it die? You learn how to use the scientific method, but it's not cutting edge science, right? And so it just didn't really get me. And as I got older, I took some different classes. And I had some like summer science experiences, and they were cool. Uh, but I still didn't know what it meant to be a scientist. I still didn't know what scientists do. And as a result, when I went to college, I actually thought I was going to be a classic study and linguistics major, because I was somehow going to get a job or learn something doing that. Well, since then, I went to college and ended up getting a bachelor's of science in chemistry. And what I focused on was the physics of how molecules move and behave and interact with each other. And I wanted to keep doing that, so I went to Berkeley and I got a PhD in chemistry, where I learned how to watch not just molecules but also electrons move in real time. And that was really cool because the time scale for that is really, really short. So the time it takes for electrons to move, their natural length time scale, it's like 100 billion times faster than you can blink. And then since then, I've come to Northwestern where I've been what's called a postdoctoral fellow. And where instead of watching electrons, I've been imaging atoms and molecules and seeing chemistry happen on an atom by atom basis. And that's been really awesome. And now I'm embarking on the next phase of my career because I want to be a professor. And so I'm in the interviewing process, interviewing at schools around the country, and it's been a really, really exciting journey for me. But during this time, I've realized I'm not alone. I'm not the only person who didn't know what a scientist does, especially growing up. At Northwestern, through the International Institute of Nanotechnology and their program called Nanoscouts, I worked with middle school and high school students who were in the Chicago area and have come to Northwestern each year, and we give them a tour and show them some of the cool and flashy science and hopefully try and drum up some interest in science and technology. And I've also mentored a bunch of undergraduates and graduate students. And what I found is that people who are getting majors in science and even people who are entering graduate school for science still maybe don't know what a scientist actually does. And it's something maybe they don't figure out until they're actually here, and that maybe isn't the best way to do things. And so I've also sat on panels where you try and introduce the concept of why am I a scientist? What do I do? How did I become a scientist? What does that mean? How hard do I work? How much do I get paid? Just questions that people don't really know the answers to. And the reaction from these panels have always been just really positive. And people always have more questions than I think they will, and they have more interest than I would ever have expected. And my hope is that those have been helpful to some people. And I'd like to extend that concept into a video series. I'd like to use this as a vehicle, an open-ended, open-source type of vehicle for answering questions about what is it to be a scientist? What does it mean? And what do we do as scientists? I think there's a real lack of knowledge about this, especially just culturally, and that makes a big problem. For every Sheldon Cooper and every mad scientist stereotype, there's roughly, say, 1 million people who are scientists and engineers who are largely indistinguishable from anyone else, um, um, but are doing really important work. So my goal is twofold. First, I'd like to interview some prominent scientists and engineers who are maybe teachers or professors, and some who are actually in industry and in companies and making new technologies and new developments, and sort of seeing what inspired them to become a scientist. Why do they do what they do? What is it like in their day-to-day work? And why are they still scientists? Right? If they've been doing it for a long time, what keeps them sort of interested and motivated? And what do they think is sort of special about being a scientist or an engineer? And the second part, the second goal, is to get involvement from the broader community, and especially from kids who are in middle school or high school age who may be thinking, I don't know what I want to do, but I kind of like science, or maybe science sounds like it could be cool. Maybe they might want to be involved in science. I'd like to sort of send this around to some maybe middle school and high school teachers and see if we can get them to poll some students and get some general questions on what it's like to be a scientist, but also to weave that into the first part where if I'm introducing a scientist who's going to be talking about maybe nanotechnology and electronics, or solar cells, or nanotechnology in medicine, sort of get some questions from people who might be interested in that area. They think, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Maybe I'd like to do that, or maybe not even I'd like to do that, but I think that's cool. If I wanted to do that, what would I do? Like, what does that even involve? And so, and maybe have them send in some questions beforehand, so we can ask them directly to speakers, or maybe I can answer them afterwards. And still working on the format, but this is sort of what I'd like to develop and sort of work on dispelling some of these stereotypes and sort of, I don't know, hinder people from going into what I think is the coolest type of career you could ever want. So with that, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you soon.